We're at number 5 in this journey through the Wrong Turn franchise, and I think this is where things have all just horribly unravelled. Wrong Turn 1 was good. Wrong Turn 2 was a little wacky, but you had Henry Rollins. You could still have some fun with the concept of the reality TV show. Wrong Turn 3, you had the convicts, you had some interesting dynamic and some good kills. Wrong Turn 3 was probably so bad that it's good, you could still have some fun with it. Wrong Turn 4 had its issues with poor characters and characters' decisions, but you also had some really good kills, some really gruesome kills, and you had the cooking of the victims instead of the cannibals eating them raw, which is just a bit weird. Wrong Turn 5 has very little to nothing that's positive about it. Now it makes you miss Henry Rollins, it makes you miss the convicts, it makes you miss the dumb decisions that they made in the fourth one. This is a god awful movie, and it's not even so bad that it's good, it's just bad. It's just bad, I know. I think this is supposed to be the sequel to Wrong Turn 4, Bloody Beginnings, but a prequel to the original Wrong Turn. I don't think the writers really care anymore. The plot of the film is about 3 cannibals and their leader, who's played by Doug Bradley, Pinhead, who terrorize a town who are having a Mountain Head festival. The one positive of the film was a moment. It was in the very first kill of a reporter. She was running through the woods, and then she was accosted by the Hilliker brothers. They cut her thumb off, and then she ran away, and she was saved by Doug Bradley, who hit her initially, but then turned on her, and the Hillikers then came along and finished her off. And as you had this body on the ground, Doug Bradley shouts out at the Hillikers, "Can somebody give me a hand, please?" One of the Hilliker brothers actually passes this lady's hand, which has been cut off. It's like, "No, you idiots, with the body." So I thought that was a mildly amusing moment, but beyond that, this film had absolutely nothing else. The plot itself is very weak. Now, I mentioned the Hilliker brothers were terrorizing a town that had a festival ongoing. We didn't see this festival. The film was located in the woods. That's not new. It was located in a seedy motel and a really, really cheap set that looked like it had been made by a primary school class. The only positive was Doug Bradley. They waited until the 5th movie in this series to bring in, they brought in Henry Rollins in the 2nd, but this time they brought in a horror icon, and the way they used him was terrible. He was relegated to a jail cell for the majority of the movie, and he would just sit in this jail cell, and "My boys are gonna get you. My boys, they're coming to get me." It was just this shit talk for the entire movie. The one icon you have, and the one person who is trying, you relegate to this shitty little jail cell, and you don't use him very well. The other issue is, in the time that Doug Bradley, the leader, was out, he belittled the 3 Hilliker brothers. The Hilliker brothers this weakened them as characters. You didn't fear them. They were this became a bit of a joke, to be honest. And speaking of a joke, their makeup. The makeup was so bad. They looked more comical than they did scary. And this movie was made 9 years ago. So this isn't an issue with technology, it was just a very poor job. The next criticism you could level at most of the Wrong Turns, but the characters were terrible. You had you had poor dialogue, you had very little character development, you had one, in terms of the character's backstory, you had one kid who had a rich dad, you had this awkward conversation between a couple who might be going their separate ways after high school, but there was very, very little. There was none of the, maybe one of the characters at the end that I sort of liked. And also the movie set, I mentioned this briefly earlier, it was, I can't even believe how cheap it looked. You had this like sterile, unused, undamaged little town. It looked terrible. You would have been better off shooting in an actual town. The set looked cheap. The budget, I don't know what the budget for this film was. It wasn't on any of the websites I checked, but it either can't have been very much, or it was squandered. And like we watch these kind of movies because we enjoy the kills, but the last 20 minutes bordered on a very sadistic form of torture porn. You had one of the girls, and she was in the police station. She was in a position where her friends were being killed, and she had this creep, Doug Bradley, in the cell, telling her that if you let me out, I'll walk away, you can survive, and me and my boys will get out of town. So you had this poor girl in an impossible situation where you either wait to be killed or you let this guy out and you hope that he'll keep his word. But when she lets him out, you don't see that this is done off camera, but the first thing he does is gouges her eyes out. He ties her up. He then tells her that, we're gonna torture you, we're gonna rape you, then we're gonna slit your throat. It was very unpleasant to watch. And then the sheriff, the other survivors, lured into a trap where she inadvertently disemboweled her husband and blew him up. She was then put in a position where she had to decide whether she would stand there and be burned alive, or she would put her foot down and blow her own brains out. Lita, I think her name was. Lita was the girl who had her eyes gouged out. She was eventually able to escape. She was running around with it. She was blind as a bat. She was running around looking for help. A car pulls up and she's so grateful to get into this car, just to realise that it's the Hilliker brothers, as Doug Bradley says, "Welcome home." And then at this point you assume that this poor girl is about to step into hell with this freak and these three hillbillies. Yeah, my final thoughts on this movie are, don't watch it unless you are like myself and you're hell bent on getting through the series. Then don't watch it. It's not a movie you can have any fun with. The third and the fourth one have a bunch of flaws. I get that, but I would still consider revisiting those. This one, there's nothing, unless you want just to get through the series, which is fine. Give it a go, but it's a terrible, terrible movie. I am going to watch Wrong Turn 6 tonight, and I don't have high hopes for it. I really would have to work hard. He would have to work hard to make it worse than this one. Bloody hell. So yeah, every other Wrong Turn film has at least something you would take out of it and say, okay, this was positive. Wrong Turn 5 didn't. So I will be watching Wrong Turn 6 later tonight, and I hope it's not any worse. I hope it's not any worse than this one. Guys, thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.